So it was a few months back in March 2026. I'd got my testosterone tested because I was feeling a little flat and low on energy. And look, I know I'm almost 40 come this December. So I'm kind of expecting my testosterone to be a bit lower. But out of curiosity, I wanted to check because I had been working out. I feel like I'm in shape and I thought it's probably holding up all right. So to my surprise, it came back a little low. So it was 366, which isn't anything to panic about, but 366 is on the low normal side of things. So the doctor wasn't really panicked either. Just mentioned it's a little low, but kind of normal for my age, which wasn't really something that I'm happy to settle for. Regardless, at the time, I was on a bit of a weight loss journey. And so since then, I've tweaked a couple of things. At the time, it's worth mentioning I was in shape. I was lifting weights 3 times a week, 8 to 10 sets pretty much to failure on most sets. Bit of a push-pull legs split. I was eating mostly whole foods, wasn't drinking, and maintaining a healthy body composition around maybe like somewhere under 15%. Made some tweaks to my diet, made some tweaks to some supplements, got tested again 3 months later, and it's almost doubled. So I've managed to boost it up to 672, which fairly pleased with. Even at the time the doc asked if I was taking anything, which felt great to hear that question. Knowing of course I'm not. 672 isn't a mind-blowingly high result. I think 750 is the upper limit of normal for someone my age. Might even be 725. So 670 is on the higher end. But like I said, no TRT, no steroids, nothing like that. It came down to 2 changes that I made. One regarding nutrition and one regarding some supplements that I was taking that you can get from your local supermarket, like very basic supplements, none of those TRT boosted testosterone boosters or anything, just like natural supplements, which I'll get into. Purpose of this video, I just wanted to show you what I was doing and some of the data behind it, because I've been tracking kind of meticulously this whole time, and I think I know exactly what's happened. So let's get into it. So the first driver of the increase to my test, I think, was nutrition. And I think surprisingly, it's not what I thought it would be. So both when it was low and when it was high, I was in a deficit. I was in a slightly lower deficit when my testosterone came back lower. I was in a 500 calorie deficit versus a 150 calorie deficit. So a much bigger deficit when it was lower. But I don't attribute the increase just to moving from a deficit to a smaller deficit, because I have been tested a few years back and it was the same, basically exactly the same low normal result that I got. So I don't attribute it to the deficit, not fully anyway. If we move over to the macro breakdown, and I have this because I've been tracking basically every meal I eat for the last 6 months. Every spoon that goes in my mouth, I've been tracking. Protein didn't change significantly. Fat moved up a little bit, and normally you would point to fat as the reason, but 63 isn't a low amount of fat given how much I weigh. I weigh 68 kilos. So it wasn't, I weigh 65 now. It wasn't a massive increase, a 10% increase to fats, but I think anything over 50 is pretty reasonable for me. What did increase a lot, and I think is the driver here, is the carbs. So the carbs went up significantly. What is that, like it's not quite double, but maybe that's an 80% increase. That's a huge jump in the carbs. And I put a big part of this down to the fact that my carbs went up a fair bit. The second thing I want to talk to is some of the supplements that I started taking. And I think definitely these did contribute, because I just felt more energy. I felt more energy in daily life. I felt more energy in the gym, been sleeping better. So I do think it's a combination of the two. I think it's a nutrition thing, and I do think the supplements also helped. So what supplements have I been taking? I'll show you. For bed, before I go to bed, magnesium glycinate, which I take 2 of those, 120 milligrams of magnesium per tablet. I've been taking zinc, so I take 1 of these a day, usually in the morning with breakfast. This is 10 milligrams of vitamin B6, 2 milligrams of manganese, and 25 milligrams of zinc. I take this Thorn B12 complex, which I don't know. I heard people rave about this. I'm not sure if it's doing anything. I'm probably not sure because it's a bit expensive. I think it's like $1 a tablet. And the last thing that I've been taking is this mega, so vitamin D3 and K2, but it's a pretty decent dose of vitamin D. It's 5,000 IU, which I don't know if you're meant to be taking this much over the long term. I think in the short term it's okay. So they're all the supplements I've been taking. I think it's probably a combination of the increase in carbs as well as the supplements. In terms of training, nothing really changed. I was training pretty hard both in March and in June, lifting weights 3 sessions a week, 7 to 10 sets a session, basically to failure, trying to cover my whole body, walking around 11 or 12,000 steps a day in both tests. I don't really do any other cardio or just don't really love cardio. And my body composition basically was pretty similar over the 2 tests. So in the first test in March, I was 68 kilos. Now I'm 66. So I can't attribute it to anything other than the change in my nutrition and the change in the supplements. So yeah, that's basically how I almost doubled my testosterone naturally. I'd like to think this isn't the ceiling. I'd love to push it a bit harder. I am currently just above maintenance now. I've pushed to daily calories of about 2,400. So before I was at 20, so my maintenance is 22. When I ran the test, I was 21. So quite curious now to see if this further increase has meant my testosterone has gone up again. I mean, fingers crossed that it has. Apart from that, I don't really plan on changing too much else. Continue tracking, continue training, and continue running a little bit of a surplus. So yeah, that's how I increased my testosterone. If you got any thoughts or ideas on ways to continue improving, let me know.